Good morning, everybody. I'm Renee Brooke. I'm City Planner, sitting in for Susan Reardon as the Staff Hearing Officer today, and I will open the Staff Hearing Officer meeting of May 9th, 2018. Beginning with preliminary matters, do we have any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of ex-agenda items? Seeing none. Announcements and appeals. Pursuant to Government Code 65852.2 and the accompanying guidelines from the Coastal Commission, I will announce my decision on the application for a coastal development permit at 2932 Cliff Drive to propose a detached accessory dwelling unit, and I was able to approve that project subject to the findings and conditions in the staff report. Item C, are there any comments from members of the public pertaining to items that are not on this agenda? Not having to do with anything on the agenda. Okay. With that, then, we'll move on to the first project. This is the application of Preston Mann at 1307 La Cima Road.
Certainly.
Thanks. Like, I know it's over here. Working?
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
Ms. Swanson?
Good morning. So we are talking about an open yard modification to reduce existing non-conforming open yard at 1307 La Cima. And so the existing development is a single-family unit with an attached garage, and the property lines are outlined here in pink. The existing open yard measures 28.6 by 31, and it is shown here in the yellow in the back corner. And that measures out to 883.5 square feet, 1,250 square feet of open yard with minimum dimensions of 20 by 20 is required, so this is non-conforming open yard. And there is a large planter that takes up the rest of the backyard, and it looks like, but this is not accessible open space, so it does not count towards the open yard. So the proposed project is a residential addition that would be in line with the existing garage and go to the back and then wrap around. And then they would also be eliminating a planter at the front and constructing a wraparound porch. And so what this does to the open yard is reduce its length by 4.5 feet. So the new reduced open yard would be 744 square feet. The existing rear yard is limited in its current landscaping. And so as part of this proposal, they would be including drought-tolerant landscaping to enhance the existing open yard. So staff is supportive of this project, as the residential addition would be in line with the existing garage and respect all setbacks. The reduction of the open yard wouldn't be so severe as to completely eliminate its function. The minimum 20 by 20 dimensions would still be retained. The proposed landscaping would enhance the aesthetics and function of the rear yard. The proposed addition would result in a house that's only 57% of the guideline FAR. And the proposed front porch, even though it doesn't count as open yard, it does provide an additional opportunity for outdoor living at the front of the house, so there would be both front and rear opportunities. The project is exempt from CEQA under 15301 and 15305. Staff does not have any recommended conditions of approval. And finally, staff did receive one inquiry about the project from the neighbor located at the rear of the property, and they had no concerns when reviewing the plans. They were essentially wanting to see if it was a one-story or a two-story addition, and they were happy that it was a one-story addition. and we received no calls, emails, or letters about the project.
Okay, thank you. And would you like to give a presentation? If so, please just introduce yourself.
The only thing I can add to
Oh, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Preston Mann. I'm the agent for this project on La Cima. The Pratts are the owners. The addition is really just adding out 4'6" on both ways, to line up with the garage and to increase the size of the bathroom and the master bedroom. Just trying to bring some of these houses that were built 60, 70 years ago up to our living standards that we have today. The only thing that I can say is, in addition to what is going to be eliminated, there is a front porch here, a very small front porch. We're eliminating that along with the planter in front, but that's the only thing I can add to this to make this front porch area much more livable and much more attractive to the neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you. And I'll open the public hearing on this item. Is anybody here to speak on the item at 1307 La Cima Road? Not seeing anyone, so I'll close the public comment portion of this item. And as Ms. Swanson mentioned, we just had the one inquiry, and it sounded like their questions were answered. I've read the staff report, and I did go by the site earlier this week. I had a couple questions for Ms. Swanson, and I do just want one point of clarification on the open yard area and why this planter portion wouldn't have counted as part of the original non-conforming open yard space. Because that would lead me in the future to continue to designate this portion as non-conforming open yard after this project.
So to provide a little bit of background, this project was submitted directly to the building department, and during zoning plan check was when the plan checker realized that they were reducing their open yard and needed a modification. Mm-hmm. And so during that process, the plan checker noted what should be counted as the non-conforming open yard, which was this rear space. Mm-hmm. And I believe that is because in the allowable encroachment section, there's a specific encroachment for planter beds, and it says planter beds consisting of low walls and earth for the purpose of providing landscaping and gardening areas no more than 42 inches in height may encroach into any setback in open yard.
Okay.
And because this area is stepped and because these walls are closer than 5 feet apart, mm-hmm. it's all included in the height, and so it is far too tall to count as an encroachment.
Okay, even to qualify for non-conforming open yards. So the previous non-conforming open yard was drawn here, and with this project, it would become the yellow portion.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I add? We didn't submit to zoning first, but we went to zoning first before we submitted to the building department, and they didn't recognize that it was not going to comply with the, and then when we went through, when we did actually submit, they ran it by zoning, and that's where it was picked up. But
okay.
I went by it twice with zoning at the counter, and they just didn't pick up the nuance.
I apologize for that.
No,
that it wasn't caught earlier.
It's understandable. It's not it doesn't jump out at you as something that would be needing a modification for.
In reading through the staff report and the reasons that staff can support the modification, I can support that as well. I do want to make the point, though, also that I believe this lot is undersized for the zone if you take into account slope density. The minimum lot size would be 9,000 square feet. Is that correct? For RS6 zone, if your average slope is between 10 and 20%, the minimum lot size is 9,000 square feet. And so I would add to the findings that another reason that the reduced or the non-conforming open yard could be supported is that it is a smaller lot than would typically be required for this zone with this slope. So I can make the findings to approve the modification. I will also make one other alteration, though, to the findings that staff has suggested. And for Ms. Vaughn, I'll read. It starts about midway through the findings the sentence that states, "The proposal includes aesthetic improvements to the site with additional landscaping at the front and rear of the lot, making the open yard more inviting and usable." I would like to strike the portion that says, "with additional landscaping at the front and rear of the lot, making the open yard more inviting and usable." So that sentence will then read, "The proposal includes aesthetic improvements to the site, and the proposed large front porch will provide an additional location for the residents to enjoy outdoor living." And the reason I'm doing that is because at any point in time, the owner could decide to change out landscaping on the site and make the yard more inviting and usable, and it's not directly related to the modification. So I just didn't want that to be an assumption in the findings. So with that change, I can approve the modification, subject to those revised findings. We don't have any conditions here on this one, so the modification is approved, and this decision is appealable within 10 calendar days to the Planning Commission. They can also, within that same time period, call up any decisions that I make today. So if that happens, Ms. Swanson would let you know.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your help.
Okay, the next item B under the regular agenda is application of Ryan Mills for a project at 743 Litchfield Lane. Hello.
Hi, good morning. You guys do the highlight. I thought they did the highlight. You guys like, okay, that's a good idea.
Right. Okay, staff, Ms. Swanson, would you like to open the presentation?
Sure. So on this project, this is 743 Litchfield Lane, and we are here to discuss a front setback modification to construct a new attached garage and overhead architectural projection. The existing site is a 17,656 square foot RS15 zoned lot, and it is outlined in pink. And it is developed with an existing single residential unit that is shaded here in green, attached garage, and 2 detached accessory structures that are proposed for removal from the site. The existing dwelling is nonconforming to the front setback, and the setback lines are shown in yellow, so you can see it goes quite a few feet into the front setback. The proposed project is an 1,869 square foot net residential addition, including creation of a new level beneath the existing dwelling, conversion of the existing garage to habitable space, an interior remodel, and construction of a new 2-car garage in the front setback. And so the front setback encroachments are shown in blue. The Single Family Design Board has reviewed this project twice. The initial proposal included a standard 20 by 20 garage that did encroach into the interior setback, and there was neighbor concern, which led the board to saying, let's restudy this garage. And so the applicant met with zoning staff, who met with transportation staff, and we came to the solution of reducing the width to 17 foot 6 inches rather than 20 for the interior dimension. And transportation has given initial support for a parking design waiver to support that and get the project out of the interior setback, respecting the 10-foot setback that the design review board specifically requested the project do. So the project returned after that conversation to the SFDB and received very favorable comments. The SFDB offered support for the proposed front setback modification, specifically noting that it's in line with the existing non-conforming dwelling. A little bit of background on the lot development. The existing dwelling was constructed in 1948 with approximately a 19-foot 3-inch front setback. This was before zoning ordinances with required setbacks were in effect. The lot was later zoned E2 with a 25-foot required front setback, meaning it was already non-conforming. And then later in the 1970s, the lot was downzoned to E1 with a 30-foot required front setback, making it more non-conforming. With Title 30, E1 is now called RS15. The lot's also non-conforming to lot size, being approximately half of the size of a newly created RS15 lot. And now jumping to our two modifications. Well, one modification, two-part. Front modification for the garage. Title 30 does allow for non-conforming additions, but only in the interior setbacks, not in the front setback, hence why we are here. Development along Litchfield Lane, specifically the western half that this side is on, is pushed towards the front of the lot. These areas are pretty sloped, and all of these areas were constructed in the same time in that 1940s, and so you will see there is approximately a 20-foot front setback consistent down the neighborhood. So staff is supportive of this request because it is in line with the existing non-conforming dwelling and because it is consistent with the context of the neighborhood. On the plan here, we can see the most adjacent neighbor is actually slightly more forward than the proposed garage would be. The architectural projection above the garage, it's a trellis-like feature that would extend over the entry and over the garage. Also needs a modification. Title 30 does allow for these kinds of encroachments, but only on non-conforming buildings. So this portion does not require a modification, but this portion does. Mm-hmm. So it's only approximately 3/4, 2/3. The proposed element would greatly exceed the requirement for a 2-foot setback. It's approximately 16 feet from the edge of the overhead projection to the property line, as this one is required to have. So the element was reviewed by the design review board, given very favorable comments, and so staff is supportive of it as an aesthetic improvement on the lot. The project is exempt from CEQA under categorical exemptions 15301 and 15305. As part of environmental review, we did require a Phase 1 archaeological report that was reviewed and accepted by the Historic Landmarks Commission, and a standard condition related to the unlikely find of any kind of archaeological features is included in the staff report. And finally, staff has received no inquiries about the project from the public.
Okay. Thank you. Applicant team, if you would like to add to that, if you could just start by introducing yourself.
Sure. My name's Ryan Mills with DMHA. This is Nick Angem with DMHA. That was a great report, so I don't think we have too much to add. But I was gonna come in here and just sort of repeat that. Yeah, we had previously the two and did meet with neighbors, actually the neighbor's architect, and tried to appease the modification, and likewise we found it was consistent with existing streetscape, but also kind of the development that has been approved along the street. And then the only other part we'd mention, just because it has come up with the boards as well, is the additions being pushed down the hill, which triggered some grading. But even that was, I believe, looked at favorably because we're protecting all existing view corridors to the neighbor to the north. So that's obviously the most sensitive thing. So that was sort of the purpose behind that. So we've been, like all projects, always trying to find the right balance between the two. But first and foremost, we were protecting their views. So I think they were very supportive of it. And that's probably all we have to add. We're happy to answer questions.
Okay, thank you. I'll open the public hearing portion of this item. Do we have any speaker slips on this item? Anyone wishing to speak? Seeing no one, then I'll close that. And I have a couple questions. I did walk the neighborhood a bit, and thank you for bringing this aerial photo. It does really show exactly what you described, the nonconforming nature of the development along Litchfield Lane. I did just want to hear a little bit about your thought process and how you came to the final design and location for the garage. I understand the decision to issue the waiver or not is up to transportation planning. Do you happen to know if 17 feet 6 is the smallest it can go and still qualify for a waiver? It sounds very narrow to me, and I'm just not sure if it'd be used as 2 cars. Again, that's not my decision, but the reason I'm asking is if you can help me understand the final location for the garage and how that interplays with the rest of the floor plan, what constraints you were dealing with.
Okay. Let's see. So, starting, here's the existing condition, right? So, Litchfield here. And if you walk the site or you know that the neighborhood, this is the view. I mean, the view is everything. So, they have amazing Ocean Island views. Originally, this whole house had the view. And I think through agreements, the neighbor is constructed right here. So, really, the majority of the house's views were taken away from this neighbor being built. So now all the value of the view is sort of back here. So the number one thing is, currently the garage is in the most valuable piece of real estate on the parcel. So the desire to convert this to the living space made a lot of sense, and just being consistent with the neighborhood, getting the garage and cars out of the way as soon as possible is always a good thing for us. So as we move here, so we were looking at where this could be. So, if this wasn't it and we start sloping off, really the only logical place was at the street, again, like all the adjacent houses. So we started life with a 20 by 20 garage, and it was encroaching in, I believe the 17.6 is our minimum. I think that's what I recall. I'm not positive there. But we were encroached, and the board encouraged us to go back. It was sizable enough that we can kind of work harder at it, so we did. So not only did we get the waiver, we actually were reconstructing, so we actually did additional demolition of the entry and the bedroom and the existing bath, perhaps. So we kind of did a compromise of both. So transportation gave a little bit, and so did the owner and the design. So we kind of did a compromise. So that's why the location. We studied a few different things, but this just made the most sense while trying to preserve. The owner is insistent we cannot tear down this whole house. So we were trying to protect as much as possible. So we kind of dug into a little more than we were comfortable with, but kind of went down that road. So that's why here. It just made sense for all those reasons, and to give that value, and then everything else is pushed downhill.
Okay, thank you for that. I had asked Ms. Swanson a question about construction staging your plan, sort of to approach construction on the site, given that there will be some grading, obviously a lot of work in the back of the site. So you're going to build back to front for access, and in terms of construction equipment and materials, will you be able to accommodate all of that on the site?
We've been working on that with the contractor.
Oh, we have a contractor. Allen Construction is most likely not hired yet. Most likely he's going to be a contractor. And I've talked to their team. We visited the site. And the idea is that they will demolish the garage, and this becomes a staging area where the current garage is. They have this driveway. It's pretty wide. So they will initially use that garage. After that, they have 2 choices. It's the south yard, which is, once we move the fence, it's going to be big enough to have some equipment for the staging, and then build a new garage. So that's the idea right now.
Okay.
And access, so the slope here is enough that, so they demo this, stage here, but also then do all the excavating, build the lower part. This is really the last to be framed.
Easily ramp it down, because it's pretty flat to the existing garage. It's relatively flat, and the slope starts from there. So they're thinking that they can utilize that, do all their digging, and once that's done, they will stage in the south yard and build a new garage and be out of there.
Okay. And have you prepared a grading plan yet, or would that be your next step with Single Family Design Board?
That is the next step.
They haven't seen it yet, or have they?
A grading plan? No. We have civil on board now, nearing completion.
Should be done this week.
Okay.
We've calculated, in Revit in 3 dimensions. We have the surveys, so we're fairly comfortable with the amount of
With the
grading.
numbers.
But
Okay.
civil really is the ultimate
Okay.
say on that.
And that is really more SFDB's purview. I was just curious that,
Yeah,
that they will get to take a look at that.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for your additional thoughts. I do agree. The pattern of development on Litchfield Lane alternates really whether you approach the garage from the front or whether you come in at a 90-degree. Most, if not all of them, are non-conforming to the front yard in some aspect. And so this configuration is consistent. It would have been nice to get a 20 by 20 garage, but I understand the concerns of going into the interior setback. I understand that. And so if that was the best compromise and transportation planning can conceptually support that, then that seems like a good compromise. I agree with staff's support and recommendation for approval of the modification for both the garage and the trellis. I would just augment, or actually revise the finding to strike the last sentence. I do agree with all the rest of the findings. The promoting uniformity of improvement on the lot within the neighborhood, that you are building in line with the existing house. But again, similar to the last project, my finding is not based on the fact that your design results in a more usable and functional open yard at the rear and side of the lot, because again, the owner could choose to do that at any point in time. It's not directly related to the modification. So with that, I can approve the modification subject to that one revision to the findings and the condition regarding archaeological resources. And that decision would be appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days, and also within that same time, they could decide to pull up any decision that I make today. So, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Stephanie. So do we leave everything?
And this, I will adjourn the May 9th meeting of the staff hearing officer.